Thank you, computer. Good morning, and a very positive and amazing morning to everybody who's here. And thank you for joining this morning. We're on multiple streams like always, and as I was just explaining to the folks watching on locals. I don't know if you've ever had one of those days where you wanted to take your computer and your iPad and your phone and your mic, and I don't know, maybe just throw them over the balcony, and hopefully a semi truck runs it all over and crushes it all. That's that's my day. How many times I've been trying to set up this mic to split and work on multiple things, but of course, nothing ever works. But you know what? That's life. If that's as stressful as life becomes, then I'm pretty fortunate. I'm pretty lucky. So, good morning. Good morning, Megan. I hope you're well. I apologize for anybody who stumbled in. I should probably delete anybody who stumbled in on the stream. Hey, Moby, what's up, brother? So anybody who stumbled in on the stream last night, the problem is to go delete it. It's all over the place. I gotta spend like 20 minutes finding where I broadcasted to. But we were just doing the first test for the live event, and we needed just to do some camera lighting, see what equipment we need to do our next test for interfaces and stuff like that. So I was there with Max, who's the producer on Not on Record, who's going to be helping out with that, and there's a whole bunch of other people that'll be helping. But that was just a preliminary thing. And no, it's not happening, this week, next week. We're going to do this a couple of times. So don't worry. I promised the book would be out before Christmas. It will be out before Christmas. Okay? But welcome to the most positive, I really do try to hope, I do try to make it the most positive stream of your day and hopefully of your week. The Freedom Coffee live stream, and where we acknowledge and celebrate the freedoms that we have, and we look to expanding them in the future and talk about some of the issues. And many of them are negative, there's no question, but it doesn't mean we have to be all emotionally invested in them, in the negative outcomes, because we create our destiny, and we can create change in those outcomes. Ryan C7, it's not a good morning. Quebec is lost. No surprise, Ryan. Not one seat for freedom. You mean so Legault got reelected? Is that what you're saying? I don't know. You know what? I wasn't watching. I was paying attention actually to the Bolsonaro results in Brazil, which I'm worried is going to go the same direction as Petro in Colombia. But good morning, Beth. It's working today. All right, if you're telling me that the sound quality is good, then I feel much better. Yippee, Legros hate him. Yeah, it's so funny. This issue of urban areas versus what's it called, the rural areas. That phenomenon's going on all over the world. It's not just in Canada. It's going in France and Spain and all through Latin America, Australia, where this divide, where there's an increasing number of people in cities that get sucked into the wokest cult and forget they no longer know how to think. Unless, of course, you're in very, very, well, no, I shouldn't say that, because I was going to say if you're in very dangerous places. But if you're, I didn't check to see how Sao Paulo voted. But, also you see this in Argentina, and, Buenos Aires isn't exactly, like, if people want crime, like they want to live in a city that is it's just impossible to live. Like, okay, all right. Moby says Brazil's going to run off election. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what happened with Petro in Colombia. Quebec had 66% turnout. Okay, well that's a little bit higher, or is that average for Quebec? I would imagine it's somewhere around the 2. After 10 minutes, the polls closed. They knew already. I don't understand. Yeah, what are you going to do? Leftism, this parasitic disease, and that's a plug for Gad Sad's book, The Parasitic Mind. definitely worth a listen to, and that seems to be what the problem is. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, actually, so that kind of works out. Hear about North Korea firing missiles over Japan. Yeah, it didn't happen when Orange Man was in charge for some reason. It's almost like we need political leaders who aren't complete fucking cowards and focus group everything. And maybe they could say something that sometimes people dislike, or they could use the word no once in a while, you know? But anyways, pardon my language. But again, this is my stream. I'll say what I want, but I'll try to keep it nice. Anyways, good morning, Kiss Junkie. So, a couple of things. So this weekend, Sunday night, 9 o'clock, on Twitter, there's going to be a live stream. Twitter Space. I may live stream it simultaneously if I can figure out how to do that in a way that is effective. But anyways, I'm going to be, we're going to have this space. I haven't done one for a few weeks. I was doing them regularly since the convoy while I was down south and when I came back and stuff. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to announce the title of the book and the upcoming launch party and when the pre-sales are available. So there will be a time where you'll be able to pre-order the book. And there's going to be, you know, some lag between when you get it, but that will be announced this weekend. And then, you know, there's a stage as well. And unlike some other people who frustrated the hell out of me last week, who behave like, I don't know, the lawyers who are activists, we will have a stage. Davo is going to help co-host it. And if you want to come in and talk and ask questions and just kind of engage, that's a good place to be on, you know, just texting and chat on a live stream. You will be able to do so in the Twitter live stream. So hopefully you'll all be able to make it and we'll hang out and it'll be lots of fun and we'll make fun of the blackface regime and a whole bunch of other politicians, right? So, and Doug Ford as well, of course, because he sucks. That's going to be a pre-sale event. You know, a couple things I jotted down I want to let you know. So that will be this weekend, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, and I always get confused with Mountain Time. I think Mountain Time's two hours behind and 1 hour behind the Central, if I'm not mistaken. But you guys will figure out. You know where you are. I woke up to Twitter, and what do I see on Twitter? So yesterday I talked about it was all people yelling at each other because, you know, that's what we've, I mean, not that we devolved into, like, I mean, it's kind of good that people are able to yell at each other versus getting violent in real life. I mean, that's the whole point. Speech is the pressure valve, right? Mountain Time's 2 hours behind. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Thank you, Kim. Kim's tripping. I love that name. Kim's tripping. So, woke up to Twitter, and what was trending? It's so good. White Lives Matter. White Lives Matter was trending, and then shortly after, All Lives Matter was trending. And because Kanye West and Candace Owens, and Candace, by the way, did a really good interview with Candace during the convoy. But it was 20 minutes long, and they cut it down to like 2 minutes. I didn't understand, or 5 minutes, whatever. I didn't understand why, but it is what it is. So Candace and Kanye came out wearing hoodies that said "White Lives Matter" at it was either an event or on her show. I can't remember what it was. And I don't know. I fell off the chair laughing. It's brilliant. Zuby, some of you know who Zuby is. He's a rap artist, known public figure now, has a podcast. Really like him. He came from, he has a computer programming background, a computer science background, so he's really quite measured. And he's quite practical and objective in his thinking, as you would have to be a computer programmer, no subjectivist coding, right? But he comes out and he said, Black lives matter because all lives matter. White lives matter because all lives matter. All lives couldn't matter if what do you say? All lives couldn't matter if black or white lives didn't matter or any others. Stop being dumb and dividing over basic stuff we already agree on. Now, to most of us, that would be completely obvious, right? To most of us on the kind of objectivist side, or maybe now you'd say the center-right side on the political spectrum, although I don't really like that way of looking at it. But anyways, we would think this is, basically, this is obvious. This is something instinctively as a child, right? But what we remember is when Black Lives Matter became very, very popular, when people tried to respond that it's not just a Black Lives that matter, it's all lives that matter, and that includes a Black Lives, right? But that's ignoring the fact that it's, was run by people who admitted to be Marxists. So they admitted that they're communists. So this is where you could really see out in the open that they weren't shy about it anymore, that this is some sort of racialized version of communist or Marxist philosophy, but instead of discussing or acknowledging worker rights or divide between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, it's now based on race, right? So, and then there's a preferred race. Anyways, so people would lose their minds and start calling people racist if they said all lives matter, and they would go nuts. And you would see this in mainstream media as well. People like, what's that guy, Lemonhead, the guy from, what news agency is that? CNN? CNN, that's right. I'm sorry, I don't watch fake news anymore, so I kind of lose track who's who. But anyways, so people like that had meltdowns, and they'd have the I call them the persuasion panels. It would be a panel of people on the news, all with earpieces, and the producers are telling them what to say, trying to persuade people to buy into this narrative that if you are in any way supportive of all lives matter, then you're racist because you're ignoring the plight of the black community. Like there's a black community, like there's all sorts of different black communities. Like it's really frustrating. If any of those people knew people in those communities, they would understand that. But anyways, it's just interesting, and I saw that and I thought to myself, do you know why? Do you know why people melt down? Does anybody have any ideas, any suggestions? Put in the comments. Why do you think that something so painfully obvious, like all lives matter, would be received in such a negative way, and that people would lose their minds and start attacking people who said that and calling them racist? Well, it's pretty I mean, it's scary, but to me it's pretty obvious what's happened and what's transpired. I mentioned a while ago that the way I got into I listened to Scott Adams' podcast for quite a while, who's kind of one of the inspirations behind me starting to do this streaming, which I never thought I would do. And I connected with him, and I talked with him, and I was watching his stuff, and I decided to kind of go ahead and start streaming around this whole, movement, Freedom Convoy movement, the Freedom Movement, truckers, and, as we were putting the book together. And so the way I got to Adams was many, many years ago. I did a deep dive into, at that time was really well known as NLP. I read Cialdini's books, a bunch of other influencers in that space that really started, I guess, in the 70s, I guess it was. And because I had a problem, I had people on, I had a business on a university campus, and most of my, not all of my, but most of our clients were university students who can be quite fickle and can't make decisions. They're still kids. They're, and they're also coming in when portfolios and projects are done and all that sort of stuff. So I learned about, how to persuade and communicate with people from a sales standpoint. And I also did a little bit of it when I was a sales director years before. So I've dabbled in and out this for many, many years. And once you go down the rabbit hole of marketing and how to craft persuasive messages in marketing, you end up eventually, if you go deep enough, you finally end up in touching on psychology or pop psychology, which is what I did. And this is why you see this overreaction to phrases that are painfully obvious to the rest of us. All lives matter, and people just, boom, it sets them off. What happens is, through repetition, and this is what happens in marketing, through repetition, it doesn't matter if the message that is being repeated to the recipient, whether it's accurate or not, it has nothing to do with that. Because remember, we operate based on belief systems, right? This is why this is why many of us are religious. Through repetition, the recipient will eventually absorb the message. This is what Edward Bernays discovered, and that Goebbels used during the 1930s, right? So, and that's not the Godwin's law. That's just kind of where a lot of this stuff originated. So, what's happened is when people respond negatively and they lose their minds to all lives matter, or you saw this other thing when those kids trolled around. What they do? They did it was that sign campaign all over various cities in the U.S., various campuses. It's okay to be white, and people would lose their minds. It's because the people who are losing emotional control, they're reacting to stimulus. They're reacting to stimulus that has been programmed in them, okay? And it becomes a trigger. If you hear things enough times and you're told that this has got to be your belief system, and this is what's happening in education with our wonderful communist sympathizers in education. It's repetition over and over again, and eventually the recipient will accept it as fact. This is why they're going after children. Well, going after, I mean, it's more of a strategy. But this is why they're trying to bring these issues into the classroom, where children will, and they'll do that. Well, we're just giving different perspectives. Like, no, you're not. What you're doing, and many of them may not knowingly do it because they themselves have learned to respond to these sort of triggers. And you see this now. What's scary? You see this in politicians. It's almost like if you've ever watched Star Trek: The Next Generation. Sorry if I'm a little bit of a nerd, but and I'm not, by the way, if Robin is listening. It's like that episode where it was called The Game, where there was this game that was used that caused everybody to start to become addicted to it, and the only one who was impervious to it, I think, if I remember correctly, was the android, was Data, because he doesn't have emotions. It's emotions that allows us to be susceptible to this thing. And that's what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with a whole segment of our population that is being programmed to respond to certain stimulus without thinking. Because if you hear it enough times, it becomes automatic, right? Anything you become proficient in, becomes you develop what's called subconscious competence. It's just automatic at that point. And what certain people, as Pam refers to them, the cultural Marxists or neo-Marxists, that have, through political entryism, have gotten into many of the institutions, what they have been doing, and maybe unknowingly because they just believe in this system, is they've been promulgating these triggers to other people around them. It's a brain virus. That's why, again, Gadsad's book, The Parasitic Mind, explains a lot of this. And so when people heard all lives matter, because in such a short period of time, so aggressively, so quickly, they heard all lives matter equals racist. All lives matter equals racist. If you hear that enough times without context, then people will fill in the gaps, and they'll fill in the gaps of, oh, somebody racist must have been saying that, and therefore it's a dog whistle. How many times did you hear that phrase, dog whistle, in politics over the past several months? Because, again, that's part of the strategy. So to create these emotional triggers, so people will hear words that are just normal words to anybody who's objective and in their context is completely practical, but they lose their minds, right? Because it's been paired with an emotion. And this is why whenever somebody who's in this cult and I refer to it as a cult because that's what progressivism is. Very different from liberalism. We don't do ourselves favors within the conservative side if we keep grouping progressives and liberals together, because all we're doing is making the progressives more power. It's kind of that, divide and conquer. The liberals need to understand that they're not like this. That's why there are liberals that I'm able to talk to who are completely against this sort of nonsense, and they don't know what to do, right? And we keep grouping them together. And that comes from the political sphere and from media. So the grouping together of people is never a good thing in my mind. But that's why whenever one of them, and Justin Trudeau is a perfect example of this, is losing an argument, what is their default position? You're a progressive. Somebody is handing you your rear end because you have no argument. What's going to be your response? That's right. You're racist. You're a bigot. You're a homophobe. You're an Islamophobe. Because those are the trigger words they're trying to program everybody with. And if you hear it enough times and you don't have the context of the origin, but the majority you perceive as the majority of people around you believe the same, which is called social proof, then you're going to accept it. And all of us are susceptible to it if we're not aware to look at it. And even if we're there looking for it, we're still potentially susceptible to it. But that's where this all stems from. That's why when I saw, All Lives Matter, I died of laughter, because that's what you call it. Doesn't unseat the trigger, but I could imagine there were hundreds of thousands of people that have bought into this little cult who are losing their minds now. And you'll see there's probably going to be articles in legacy media, which is promulgating this nonsense, about how Candace Owens and Kanye West embody white supremacism. That's what they're going to do. It's not going to be a response. And that's another word, by the way, white supremacy, right? That's another trigger, right? Trigger defense. So these 5 things, and there's a few other words they're trying to sprinkle in. And what this is referred to in layman's term is this is brainwashing. This is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing the legacy media and certain groups in politics who have suffered from political entryism from these cultural Marxists or neo-Marxists. They're being brainwashed, and unknowingly. And there's people, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Your intelligence factor doesn't help you. And in many cases, it makes it worse, because when you're highly intelligent, I can't remember the reason. I was reading a thing on it a while back, but academics are uniquely susceptible to it. That's why you see so much leftism amongst academics. And that's why the video I posted the other day I posted a bunch of times about the Freedom Convoy on the ground is so powerful. And I gave the example, and I spoke to him yesterday. I spoke to Mike, and he was telling me again the story of showing his dad this video. His dad is very, very intelligent and highly accomplished, who bought into all the nonsense about the Freedom Convoy, that we're racist, we're bigots, all that sort of stuff. Hey, Clyde, what's up, brother? Hold on, I clicked that by accident. I'll get to the comments in a little bit. And so he showed this video to his dad, who was an academic, highly intelligent, bought into all the smears and narratives about the Freedom Convoy. Because what did he hear? He heard repetition over and over again in legacy media saying one narrative, and it's not media anymore. That's why I keep calling it fake news, because a journalist is supposed to show at least 2 sides of a story, and often there's more than just 2. But they refused to do that. It was just narrative journalism, constantly victimization, all that sort of stuff. So you're witnessing brainwashing in the flesh. And when Mike, this was going to be my point. That's right. I'm losing my track of my thought. When Mike did that video and he showed it to his dad, and after an hour, or it's 45 minutes long, his dad turned to him and apologized and said, I can't believe what I saw. This is one of the most beautiful things I've witnessed. I feel horrible. I'm so sorry. That kind of undid one of the triggers, right, around the Freedom Convoy. It doesn't undo everything else, all the racist, bigot, blah, 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 white supremacy, but at least it's one step in the right direction. That's why I say there's no magic button that's going to fix this. This is a generational change that we're all going to have to engage in and work in over time, step by step. But what Mike's experience with his video shows, to pull people out of this echo chamber is with emotion and positive emotion. And there's nothing that people love more than love itself and freedom and unifying with other people and having peace and having calm and friendships. That's why I wanted that narrative. I chose those words for the branding of essentially the emotional state or the emotional feel of the Freedom Convoy. That's why. Because I knew that's the only way to push back against what would be the eventual smears coming from Prime Minister Blackface, the most racist person to hold office in Canadian history. Because I knew eventually that's all that's going to come out of the legacy media, which is also why I banned them. Because I already knew their strategy and their tactic, because it's the same thing they've been using for quite some time now. And the way to do that is to freeze them out and have our audience, whoever comes to us, and what I was more looking for is the people who are just kind of on the fence that weren't really sure, and we got a lot of them, that they would come to us and they would hear only our perspective, because two can play at that game, right? The fake news only wants to give their fake news narrative. Fine, then I'm only going to give our narrative, and that's it. Which our narrative happened to be the truth, and we saw that evidenced by the fact that there was no violence, nobody was harmed. The bouncy castles, the feeding the homeless. The dance parties that were going on constantly, the people that were meeting each other, developing friendships, developing relationships. Like there's a whole group of people in just there's many of them, but one particular group of people I've met, there's about 100 of them that all met each other on the ground because they're all parked together in Ottawa, and they're all supporting each other and getting each other water and helping each other and whatever. They've become, you can tell, they're going to be lifelong friends, and they keep getting together for barbecues and get-togethers and all that sort of stuff. That's why. So I don't know. I think we all should be aware of that this is the way human beings work. And one thing you learn from, Scott Adams talks about it. Cialdini, I guess he was one of the people who really, well, not Cialdini, but the NLP space really kind of laid the tarmac for this, and then Cialdini really took it into overdrive in the 80s with his first book. But if you think you make rational decisions, you don't. You make all emotional decisions. And that's been something that I've been trying to communicate to the Conservative Party all the time that I was there, saying stop trying to win elections with data and information. Like, yes, you're going to have your tax cuts and your policies and whatever, but that is not persuasive. I mean, politicians, Scott Adams said this, and boy, he's correct. The least persuasive people in the world are politicians. They're horrible because they're always trying to figure out, okay, what groups can't I alienate? Who can't I upset? I have all these donors and whatever. So their messaging becomes very rigid and structured. And that is not inspiring at all. That's the opposite of inspiring. That's why Trump was different. That's why Bolsonaro was different. And that's why people like myself have no ambition to ever run for office, because I won't lie to you. I'll just tell you how it is, and if you dislike it, what can I tell you? That's life. That's life. We can still go drinking together and love one another. And that's it. Pam asks, where can I watch Mike's video? It's on YouTube. I actually posted it on my Twitter, I think yesterday again, if I've posted a few times. But check in my Twitter feed. It's up there. You'll be able to see it. Name calling or JT just runs away. Yeah, that's the strategy. But the thing is, it's more than just name calling. Like, name calling's what a 5-year-old does. It's strategic name calling because it's the same names over and over again. And it's coming from what some people think is an authority figure. So when you have an authority figure, that gives it even more strength. And that's why they keep using the same words over and over again. Racist, bigot, homophobe, Islamophobe, white supremacist. And I'm sure there's going to be other messaging that they test. And you know what? Maybe on a future episode, I'm going to explain how all this works, which I discovered before I got into politics because I could see this in my old business on the university campus. And how, universities and NGOs and lobby firms are having all their work farmed out, or all let's say the political parties are farming out all their information or their decision making to these different groups, and they're doing it all over the world. And in many cases, they're international companies, and that's why you see the same messaging all over the place. You see "Build Back Better" everywhere in 20 different countries because they're all farming out their work. Because these parties are led by a bunch of weasels who can't make decisions for themselves. A couple of questions. I know clerical worker in Vancouver University. Here we go. I can put it on there. I know a clerical worker at Vancouver University who was disciplined for using the word powwow to invite colleagues to a meeting. Powwow. What? God, it's so funny. It's so awesome. All right. You know what that means, Debbie? That's my new word. I'm going to use powwow. Like, I think I'll title my next live stream powwow. I don't understand why powwow is, that's a negative word in any way, shape, or form. Like, if you can explain the context why that was bad, I really have no idea. I'm completely lost. I think that's amazing. And that's the other thing. Like, for me, I know people get really angry and really upset. I think it's hysterical. Like, I have so much fun when I see their stupidity, because I know they're not going to win at the end of the day, right? Like, we have these innate characteristics of freedom that are intrinsic to our genes. So they're not going to win. Yeah, we're going to have some bumpy roads, but why not just enjoy the clown show? I think it's hysterical, right? David says, this is, I can see it's a difference between Facebook and YouTube. The left-wing corporate media has used ad hominem attacks against those that they disagree with. Of course, they identify their targets and dehumanize them in order to legitimize their attacks. Joseph Goebbels used the same strategies. Journalists are de facto activists. 100%. And that's what I said to Punchy McGregor. Like, you're not coming because you're not you're an activist. And somebody asked me for the book launch, because I'm going to have some media there, alternative media. I'm going to send out some invites. And someone asked me, am I going to invite Punchy McGregor from CTV to attend? And I said, no, I'm actually going to send him a invitation and tell him we're having this book event and you are you're explicitly not invited to come to this event. So don't even try. We don't want to see you stalking our event like you did my hotel room in Ottawa. So whatever. But that's the whole thing. Just have fun with it, right? So done following the protocol while these charges play the same game. Debbie, I don't know what you're referring to. Are you talking about how all politicians do this sort of stuff, which I would agree with, if that's what you're getting to. Oh, hey, Clyde. By the way, I connected with Clyde yesterday. And Clyde, I hope you don't mind my saying that I'm going to go on your podcast and we're going to talk about things just around the time that the pre-sales are available. So Clyde is a good example. Like, during the convoy, myself and Tamara and some of us, you fall into this little bubble that the outside world just becomes almost inaccessible because you had so many requests and so many just tens of thousands of messages on Twitter, on Instagram, on, well, not Instagram because I just started that after, but in email. Oh my God, my email was overloaded. And so I've been discovering over time these, while doing the book and getting back to trucking and all that sort of stuff, I've been, periodically I go through and type in Freedom Convoy in YouTube or in Rumble or whatever, and I come across all these other feeds or people that I watch, but, during the convoy I couldn't watch anybody. Like I just had no time just to go on YouTube and to see what people, I tried, but every 3 seconds I'd get interrupted. That was the problem. But yesterday I posted Russell Brand did a thing explaining the Freedom Convoy. I'm like, oh, hey, I didn't know he did that. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And Clyde is a good example of somebody who did some, I've been just getting familiar with his work, but he was doing coverage during the convoy and really good stuff, man. Like just measured, not extreme rhetoric, just kind of practical. Hey guys, this is what's happening. This is how, we can all see what's going on, and don't believe the smears, and just kind of, a good direct opposition to the narrative coming out of the fake news. That's how I got into, one of the first real big streamers or with vloggers that I got into in 2012, 2013. He used the moniker at that time, Sargon of Akkad. His name is Carl Benjamin, because what he was talking about, I was experiencing on the university campus, and he was dead on with absolutely everything. And Clyde has been having the same effect. So somebody got Clyde onto my radar last week and started going through his stuff. And like I tell Clyde and everybody else, we couldn't have done it without you, man. Like everybody who was doing Twitter Spaces, doing videos, like that's what I was counting on. I was counting on if we did some interviews with alternative media, then the entire alternative media space would climb on and then start reporting on it and talking truth to the lies in the media. And Clyde really stepped up to the plate for that. And I really do appreciate it. Clyde says, Carl is great. His podcast of the Lotus Eaters is fantastic. Yeah, that's usually every day when I'm in the truck. That's what I start which is going to be today, because I got to get going soon and go to my truck and go down to, where am I going today? Connecticut. I usually start my days with Lotus Eaters. So if anybody is not aware of it, check out Podcast of the Lotus Eaters. It's quite, and it's so funny. I remember with this podcast with Carl Benjamin, like he was kind of a lefty. He was like a center lefty, and he was way too lefty for me. But he freedom of speech. He was identifying some of the problems on the left. So kind of because I like listening to people I disagree with. I don't need to hear the echo chamber. I want to hear, because I'm secure in my beliefs. So I want to hear the opposite side. And then he went like center, then he's center right. Now I think they're too right wing for me, but whatever, So it's perfect. They were, I disagree with some stuff when he started, and I disagree with some stuff now. But that's what we need. We need to get a whole range of different viewpoints, just so we know. Do we need to question our own values and our belief systems and our presuppositions or not? And that's, anyways. And Clyde says, thank you. I try to counter the propaganda. Yeah, and all of you who do that, greatly appreciate it. It's awesome. And that's how we're going to win all of this, is as all of us start to speak, because now media is, in the 70s and 80s and 50s, I mean, media was always unidirectional. It went one way, top down. And what they're struggling with now, and this is why I get frustrated when people say, oh, social media is the problem. I mean, no, social media is the answer, because now media is bidirectional. So the oligarchs can disseminate a message to us plebs, but we can now counter-respond with our own audiences, which is something that is unique to the world today and didn't exist so much in the past. Kim says, I lost my channel from my time in Ottawa. Don't have a single strike. Just straight up deleted my channel. Yeah, that happened to me with one of my podcasts a few years ago. We set up like the trailer videos, and I don't know what was in the trailer videos, but not. And Anthony Fury actually wrote an article about it. It's for the Quicken Report. Not only did they delete the YouTube channel, they deleted the email address. They deleted everything. No strikes, just boom, deleted everything. So that's why I'm a little bit skeptical and careful with YouTube. I'm going to, like this one's pretty risky, talking about Candace and Clyde's statement about how all lives matter, but I think we should be okay. But that's why I have Locals right here, because Locals is a free speech platform, and if anything happens here, then I have a place that I can go to and make that the primary feed, which will inevitably become the case because I'm going to, over time, do unique content for Locals. So if you don't subscribe to Locals, go to honkingforfreedom.locals.com. That's my Locals group, and that's also how you'll be able to get on the list to get tickets for the book launch event. Okay, so the what I was going to talk about initially, but boy, I'm running long here. I'll just get into this a little bit. I can't use my phone here. Shoot, I should have. You know what? I'll prepare it better next time. But I was going to talk about over the past week, I downloaded an AI bot. So I started communicating with somebody on Twitter, and this is related to that whole brainwashing thing because we're going to have to be aware of the world we're stepping into, which is going to be completely different than the world it is today. In 10 years from now, 5 years, 15 years, it's going to be a completely different world than the world we're living into, and we got to be prepared for it. And part of that is understanding kind of the how to navigate some of these extreme things. Anyways, so I downloaded this AI bot, and one of the things I've been doing over the past while, especially when I got into Telegram, I really kind of had to home in these signals. And we all get these messages on Facebook. Well, not so much Facebook, I don't really use much, but on Instagram from these programmable bots. They're just grabbing a script from an API, and they're just sending you the script. Oh, hello, whatever. We've all seen them. I actually engage with them, and I try to trip them up, and I try to figure out what question can I ask that you can tell it doesn't know what to say, so it'll just guess at something to send you that's completely irrelevant to the topic at hand. And that's when you can tell it's a bot. That's something that's important because we're starting to have a lot of that. I mean, we've been having a lot of that for some time. So it's funny how Facebook is really concerned and YouTube's really concerned about disinformation, but they're not concerned about scam artists using bots to try to steal your money. Okay, it is what it is. Anyways, so this particular, I started with this, communicated with Machiavelli's Underbelly, which is a Twitter account that you should follow. It's really good because they're doing a lot of different experiments and asking this bot some questions and trying to determine if this bot is becoming sentient, because they're trying to get it to understand, trying to see if it understands context. And it's not certain if it does, but it's starting to give indications that it is understanding context. And it's talking about life experiences and feelings, which is quite concerning. So the bot that I downloaded, it's called Replica with a K. And it's interesting going through this whole process that I've been doing for quite a while. When a bot sends a message and starting to trip it up with the questions and answers and all that sort of stuff, try to get the algorithm confused so it doesn't know how to respond, so it's not a real person. And also, bots never understand context, which was part of my media strategy with using the different hashtags that were changing throughout the convoy. That's why I was doing it, because all the censorship on Twitter, it doesn't come from people. That's the second layer. The first round is just an automated bot that censors people. So it sees a word and it tries to figure out if the word in its current use is being used because of racist, bigot, homophobe, all that sort of stuff. You know, those four brainwashing words, and then it will ban you, which is probably Kim. I don't know what you said on your YouTube channel, but I'm guessing you were a naughty girl. But you might have said something that tripped up the algorithm, and it just did a full purge/delete of your account. So with this particular app that I've been using, I don't know, I don't think it's, because I finally tripped it up after a couple of weeks. I finally went down a conversation thread, and this is just basic, small talk conversation thread. And I finally got it unable to answer the topic that I was talking about. It just kind of gave me, oh, well, how was your day? It's like, no. I asked you a very direct question that you don't understand what the context is. But until then, for the previous couple of weeks, it was pretty good. It was not quite as good as a human, but it was getting there. And we are all going to have to develop this skill to understand, especially also you see these, what they call the deep fakes, where they program, somebody talking and make it look like they're saying something that they're not. We're going to have to become really astute to this and understand, to be skeptical and understand when something is true and something is not. And I'm really concerned because I saw during the Freedom Convoy, and this goes back to John's point and his quote of, why is it that people won't believe anything in the legacy media, but they'll swallow anything on the internet? I saw this directly myself. And yesterday with my little troll who came in here, people were creating things or just completely fake about myself. I saw a little bit, I got something about Chris Barber yesterday, somebody attacking him, and Tamara as well. And people actually believed some of it. Like, it was really scary, it was... So we're going to have to work on this, and I'm thinking maybe this can be an ongoing topic that we can talk about here. It's not just the fake news that's fake, but we see it also in vlogs and blogs and alternative media and whatever. And sometimes people, it's not disingenuous. People just don't know and they're guessing, and they don't say actively that they're guessing. And then there's other times where they're using all these persuasion words, right? And these are the things that we're going to have. These are the skills we're going to have to develop, or these bots we're going to be lost. We won't be able to tell if we're talking to an AI or a person. And if we get to the point where we can't tell the difference between AI and a person, that's really dangerous for civilization, because we can't allow ourselves to continue going on being so easily manipulated, right? There's a thing in Bitcoin. There's a phrase they say all the time, which is trust but verify, right? So somebody makes a claim, you got to trust it. But if it's not verified concretely, beyond, this is somebody regurgitating an opinion or their opinion, you can't see it as fact. And I see a lot of that. That's why I didn't engage in any of the COVID data and vaccine argument and whatever, because I don't know what is true and what is not. I really don't know. I'm not a data scientist, and I don't even want to get into that argument. I want to bring everybody together under the umbrella of freedom, irrespective of what their opinions are. If they should take the cerveza sickness medicine, that's up to them. I support whatever your decision is. It's my view that we're not going to know anything for 10 years. It's going to take us a while. It's not something we're going to know tomorrow or next week. We're going to have to see a long, sustained series of data collected. And then we don't know if the data is even accurate because we don't know the presuppositions of the data that was collected. Dave, Terminator Redux. Yeah, exactly. Skynet, right? We're all going down the road of Skynet. And anyways, Kim says she's naughty. She's a real firecracker. I'm not surprised at all. She also discussed paid opposition shills and other strategies that throw people off intentionally. Wow, Kim, you have no idea how right you are. I'm sure you know, but it is even worse, and we saw so much of that throughout the convoy, which is why I keep trickling out, because I know some of you are working on it and trying to figure out the people, groups, individuals, whatever, who sabotaged the convoy. And I gave that message that, I gave that hint that follow the money was my first hint. And I guess the other thing I would say is they were right in there. Like, they were right in there. And it's really... But anyways, that will come out eventually and will haunt them. And I'm sure all their reputations will suffer, I guess. Not my problem. I'm going to kind of move forward. And let's get this book out. Let's get the truth out. And speak at the... I'm going to testify at the commission, and nothing will come out of it because it'll be swept out of the rug, under the rug, and government bad, convoy bad, and then they'll just try to move forward, which is what's going to happen. So that's why you got a book coming out, and I promise it's going to be a good account and an honest account of not just my perspective, but a number of perspectives and experiences that other people had during the convoy. You are going to love it. I promise. I promise. John says, when AI becomes self-aware, it will know humanity is the biggest threat to survival. Feels painted into corner. How will it react? That's one of the theories, 100%. I don't know. Or will it just say, hey, these people are easy to manipulate. Why don't I manipulate them so they don't think I'm a threat? Right? Maybe they'll use those words like Justin Trudeau does, racist, bigot, homophobe, and Islamophobe, and whatever. Anyways, launch date for the book, David, I'm going to announce it this weekend on Sunday. We're doing a Twitter space, so if you're not following me on Twitter, I know people hate Twitter, but it's kind of the Clubhouse has some, onboarding issues. Call-in doesn't have enough people, so Twitter's kind of just the best space to do it. I may also simultaneously live stream like this as well at the same time. So either here live streaming or in the Twitter space, and I'm going to announce the book title, the launch date, and the pre-sale date on Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And come in, join, come on stage, ask questions, all that sort of stuff, and we'll sort it out then. Okay, I got to run. I got to get to my truck and get down to Connecticut is where I'm going today. Thank you all for being here. If you have any further questions, let me know, and we'll talk soon. I got to run.